Hello! Live despite some technical difficulties. Sorry, guys.
We're live! Yay!
Yay. I had to restart my internet, so apologies. I don't know what is. Hopefully this works out. So, hi.
Yeah.
This is a little last minute, but I'm here with some guests, and we're going to be talking about Gothic stories. Oh.
Yeah. Sorry.
Sorry.
That's my bad. Okay. I went on my phone to tell people we were delayed. But I'm out now, so.
Thank you. No, you're good. Thank you. Yeah. I appreciate it. Hi, Ashley. Sharon.
Hi. I was just watching Ashley.
Yay. Oh, I haven't seen it yet, but I know she had a new video go up. Yay. Sorry, guys.
It was really good. She was roasting things. It was exciting.
That is always fun. So yeah, hopefully this works. I had to restart my internet, and now it seems more stable, so fingers crossed. Out. But we're here to talk about Gothic stories. I have a couple of guests, so if you guys want to introduce yourselves, thanks for joining me. It should be fun.
Ladies first, Liene.
What are you?
I'm no lady.
I always think of myself as the dude of the group, so I'm the one that's like, what is romance? What is makeup?
I'm wearing the least makeup tonight because I wasn't filming today, so.
That's true. Me and Liene only agreed to do this because we were filming something else and didn't want to waste the makeup. So, okay, I'm Mara from Books Like Whoa. Hello, you can find me at Books Like Whoa. I read all the things, pretty much. Yeah, pretty much all the things.
Yep.
I am Liene from Liene's Library, and I am trying to read all of the things, but that has not historically been the case. I predominantly read fantasy of the grimdark variety.
You're trying. You're branching out a little bit.
You have been.
I'm eating my veggies.
So, yeah, Mara does read everything. That is true. So yeah, we are here to talk about Gothic stuff because that seemed fun. I've been on a Gothic horror kick lately, but I also like Gothic romance, and I have thoughts on things. So I have some books, some guests, and I'm just, oh yeah, me too. I do read a little bit of everything. That's true. So I don't know where to start. I'm just like was a little frazzled because of my internet, and so now I don't
it's okay.
have like a clear place to start.
We can vamp. Well, I will say, so last night I did a live stream and I was asking people to ask me for book recommendations, and I got almost 100, and I would say nearly 20 of those 100 were asking for like fall books, Gothic feels, like chilly vibes. So I think people, even though here where I am, it is still a smooth 90 degrees outside every day, I think people, because it's September, are like ready to transition into some Gothic times. That's at least what I took from that.
I think it's because we're all ready to just fast forward through the rest of 2020.
I mean, like, you're not
so real.
And let's just get this shit done.
That's true. Yes. Yeah. Well, I'm sure we have some recommendations. I don't know about this. Armstrong has an interesting Gothic coming out in October. I don't know about this. Does anybody else know about this?
Which Armstrong?
I don't know.
Garden centers.
I think Karen Armstrong, who's like a religious scholar, I'm guessing she doesn't have a Gothic.
All wrong.
You never know.
Is it a bicyclist?
Kelly Armstrong.
Okay. Kelly Armstrong. Is she the one who wrote Bitten? Did she write that?
Oh, you know what? Actually, I just saw this pop up on NetGalley today. Yeah, she does have it's like a Gothic time travel romance, I think. It just I think A Stitch in Time. It's coming out with
question
the people that do the really cool stuff. Yes. What?
Oh yeah, I see it.
From your resident dude, what is a time travel thing? Whatever you just said.
A time travel,
like a
romance
book that has time travel. People who fall in love across time. They live in different time periods. Like there's time travel.
Like Outlander is the one people go to a lot of times. Yeah. So like hey, like I was wandering through the Scottish moors, and all of a sudden I tripped, and all of a sudden I was back in ye olde medievally Scotland, and there's tilts everywhere.
Trip and fall into the arms of the Scottish man.
But like actually, it's a good one. Yeah, I have one on my TBR where it's a modern girl who goes back in time to Viking times, and I keep meaning to get to it and keep not reading it, but I'm like, surely a 21st century woman would not enjoy the romantic advances of a Viking man.
I mean, Leanna might.
Excuse me. I have several things to say. I have multiple things.
Rachel, same. Honestly, same.
Yes, agreed.
Okay, but Vikings were like some of the cleanest people in Europe, for one.
That is true.
They had a much more egalitarian society because there were shield women, there were women who had rights. Like there was just a lot more equality of the sexes. It still wasn't great, but like more. So like if you're gonna go back to any historical time period and be like hanging out, Vikings is kind of okay.
Fair enough.
I mean, I will say that based on the Viking romances I've read, they seem very willing to administer oral pleasure. So I wouldn't guess that a random,
historically accurate,
like
it was all about that,
Baron would be as down with that. So who knows?
Witches Steep. That cover is stunning.
Oh,
I think it's coming out. It's like a YA. It's got a gorgeous cover. Yeah, I think I like wished for it on NetGalley, or maybe I got denied it. I'm not sure, but it does look really beautiful.
Look how pretty.
I know.
Ashley, I need you to just like every time I watch Ashley's channel, I just find out about all of these YA books I had no idea about. I need her to like teach me about these things. I just want that based on the cover. That's shallow, but true.
Yeah, Bridget, I got denied also. I think that's okay. Okay, I did read a YA Gothic horror that I really loved last week. Okay, so The Companion, it just came out by, what is her name? Katie Allender. It's Katie Allender. Yeah, so it's a, she says it's on the Librarian Network. That's why she's getting it. Right, because you're librarians, you can get more things. Yeah. But The Companion's really good. It's kind of a modern take on a classic kind of Gothic horror novel. So it's set in modern day, but it's got, and this is kind of what I wanted to talk about. I think it's interesting thinking about like what makes something Gothic, or sometimes things have Gothic vibes, but aren't as much. But the thing about this was it's at an isolated historic estate. So like everything is happening, and it's a slow burn. It starts out a little creepy, and then things slowly build and build and build. And I think it's done really well.
Well, I think to me, part of what makes something Gothic is the question of like, but is it like, is it paranormal though? Like, is it supernatural though? Like, there's like that kind of playing with the reader's expectations where like, but is it a witch? Is it a ghost? We don't know. And like, sometimes it turns out it is, and sometimes it turns out it isn't, but like,
and
that mystery I think is a big part of it.
Yeah. And I think that's definitely present here too.
A specific time period in order to be considered Gothic?
No, I think you can have, well, I think you can have more modern, The Companion, Bridget, the one I'm talking about, The Companion.
But then is it modern because it's taking place in a setting that is of a historical time period?
Yes. I think it evokes kind of a ooky spooky Victorian vibe, but it can be in the present day. So I think often successful modern Gothics have to be kind of set in an isolated setting that feels a little bit like out of time.
So you're saying that like this, no matter what the plot line or the questionable like spookiness of it, if it's like me in a mid-century modern house is like the protagonist and setting, that cannot be Gothic.
I think it could be if you didn't have very many neighbors or something, like if it was like isolated a little bit.
Isolated out in the country. I think that's the thing. There's something about the isolation, and even isolation from most of the modern world. Well, so here's the question, Rachel. Can you define what Gothic means to you? Which is interesting. I think
also find out what Wikipedia says.
What does it mean to you?
What does it mean?
Well, it could mean relating to the Goths or their extinct East Germanic language. I don't think that's what we're
going to do.
That would be more my kind of Gothic.
Well, But that does make sense because when we think Gothic, we think Victorian, and in the Victorian period, there was this huge revival, like there's this huge medieval revival, including the architecture. So I'm assuming that's why it gets called Gothic.
I feel like for me, like isolation, a slow build where things start by feeling maybe slightly off, and then that develops over time where things get weirder. And like kind of a slight spooky atmosphere. So this is interesting. Atmosphere, like a Victorianish manor, New England, or the South.
Oh, like Southern Gothic. Yeah. That's like Flannery O'Connor, I think of as Southern Gothic. Yeah. Fun fact, it turns out its origin is attributed to English author Horace Walpole.
Okay.
Which I just love that name, with his 1764 novel, The Castle of Otranto.
I had to read that in university. I was like, why do I know that name? And I was like, yeah, it's that fucking book that I hated.
I read it.
I hated that book so much.
Okay, so thumbs down from Liana. Hated it.
Like, the only thing I really remember other than hating it was how long my professor was talking about sheep eating Knott's, like, shortbread jam cookies when he visited, like, the actual place that this is supposed to have been inspired by or take place. And I was just like, why? Why am I paying for a degree at Berkeley if I'm just going to be told about sheep eating cookies? Like, fuck off.
Yeah, this one I think is kind of what you were saying, mystery with atmosphere where you don't know what's going on versus ghosts. Yeah, so that can be the horror, but I think even with romance, with Gothic romance, it can be similar where there's something that you're not sure if it's supernatural or not. I think like a perfect example of that is Hester Fox. So we have like...
Yes, that's who I wanted to talk about.
Yeah, like I won't say which one. Like one of these, there is something supernatural, and one of them there's not, but you're not really sure.
I think though, I mean, to me, and I don't know if it's implied in what you're saying, to me, it's not implied so far, and I think it is part of it, is that it's not just supernatural. It has to be in some way related to like ancestors or the past, like dead people. Like it has to be related to like who once occupied this space or like who is connected to the space. Like it can't just be like a fairy.
That's interesting.
Right. Yeah. That's true. Yeah. I don't think it's like, I think if there is a supernatural,
like there is that like memento mori quality that has to be there.
It can be, but I mean, I also think about something. Well, I wanted to talk about Hester Fox, and the other book I obviously want us to talk about is Jane Eyre, because like, of course. But, you know, I think that's a book that plays with ideas of supernatural. And in that case, it wouldn't necessarily be ancestral. It would be like who is Bertha Mason and what is she?
But it's still like the people occupying that space and like,
it's to do with right. That. It's not like some far off magic, like coming in from outside. It's more.
And to a greater or lesser degree, even vampires and vampirism is still related to like a person who is of the living dead. And so it is like an ancestor who is like walking and talking.
Yeah, I mean, and I think it can be also people who are, I mean, I think ancestry can play a role in it frequently, but I think it can also just be about like who is living in a place and I think questions sometimes, this is interesting, I think not always, but often it's also questions of identity of like who belongs in a place and doesn't. Because I feel like a lot of the things I've been reading lately, it's like there's an outsider and something maybe thinks they don't belong there, and that's part of the conflict, which is kind of interesting.
I just feel like there's something always more human and human-centric about it, even if it is ultimately supernatural. Like it's not gonna be like a straight up like a monster. It's something very human that is always like at the core of it.
Yeah. Well, and I'm thinking, because I'm looking at Wikipedia here, and it doesn't really give us a good definition other than extreme romanticism. But that actually I hadn't quite thought about it that way, but that does make sense because, and it goes with what we're saying, because romanticism is all about like being tied to the land and like, you know, a lot of the architecture of romanticism is about like integrating into the landscape. And you think about something like Wuthering Heights, which is a prototypical Gothic novel where it's all about the moors and like, you know, the connection to place. So I think if there's magic, it tends to be magic that is rooted in that place and
the people that occupy that place,
and the people that
occupy or the present.
Yeah, I think that's true. That's interesting. Okay, we have somebody saying, Caitlin, hi. Do you have any recommendations for newbies to the genre I've dabbled in mystery. I'm just now trying horror. Read Mexican Gothic a couple months ago and enjoyed it. Mexican Gothic I really enjoyed too. Have you guys read Mexican Gothic yet?
I'm planning to read it in October because October seems like
so
a good time.
This one is definitely horror. Like this one is Gothic horror, which is interesting because there's a difference too, which we could talk about. But depending on what you want, thoughts on places to start. I mean, there's definitely classics in the genre, Jane Eyre and Wuthering Heights we talked about, but
yeah. Well, I think it also depends on if you're looking for something that is, because I mean, like Wuthering Heights versus Mexican Gothic, like one is like more about just like the haunting quality that a place has without actually doing anything supernatural or horrific. It's just more like the horror of human nature and the horror of like familial baggage and stuff like that. Versus I haven't read it, but I'm assuming Mexican Gothic is more about actual horrific things, may or may not be supernatural.
Yeah, it's definitely, I mean, that's part of the question is it or is it not supernatural is part of what goes into it. So I won't say it, but like, yeah, there's more actual horror, I think there. And another one, this is not exactly what this is. So this is one that I'm like, is semi-Gothic, doesn't have like a manor associated with it, but I feel like The Year of the Witching has some Gothic vibes because it also has that sense of place and the people who occupy it and who deserves to occupy it. But it's like more centered on this town and this forest rather than a specific house, but it's an isolated town. So like, that's another interesting one.
I would call Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires to be somewhat Gothic in the sense of it's definitely playing with the ideas of, is it actually supernatural or not? It's very rooted in a specific place, and I think it turns a lot of the tropes about place on its head. And because I mean, thematically, this is basically about white flight in the 90s in the South. So this definitely also has some real horror elements to it in terms of gross out.
Yeah.
So
yeah, definitely. Oh, I haven't read that one.
It's also very short, so if you hate it, you won't be so. The play is so good. I screamed. I literally screamed.
I did. Yeah, I saw that the time before I was in London. And it was terrifying. It's okay. Sorry. Well, when you live in the South, you don't get to see plays ever because they're just anyway. You have to go elsewhere for it.
So so this is the question. I would consider Haunting of Hill House to be Gothic horror. Like that is. Have you guys seen
the TV show or the book?
The TV show. She said the TV show.
So I mean,
the book probably. I would.
I was gonna say the TV show is like very different from the book. So you could consider one and not the other.
I haven't read the book, but I would still call the TV show Gothic horror, even though it has some flash forwards that aren't in the house. Like I feel the story centers on this place and like the effects that it has. I mean, I
think so. I mean, I've not seen the TV show because I started watching it and I was like, oh, this is nothing like the book. I need to like give myself some space with this. But I think I would say almost anything involving a spooky house, usually you can probably think of it as Gothic. And then in the case of the Haunting of Hill House, yeah, like I feel like that's a real trope. And something we've not talked about, I think also Gothic to me also communicates, and again, this goes with the idea of romanticism, a certain heightened emotional tone. So it can be either truly dramatic or it could be melodramatic, depending on what kind of book it is. But there's definitely, I think, some sort of like heightened sense of drama in the tone of the work, which I think the book definitely has.
Directly ties into the fact that like, if you're going to say that a place is forever changed by the people that occupied it, that their emotions echo into time after their passing, that like in order to believe that, then emotions have to be really central to the story that you're telling, because you're saying those emotions like are beyond the grave.
Yeah. That's interesting. Let's see, in the 19th century, men used to call those Gothic ladies,
because that goes into the sort of that melodramatic label,
over emotional,
very heightened emotion.
I really want to read some of the more classic, less known Gothic novels. Like I have a few on my TBR. I read this nonfiction book that was really interesting. Like the women who it's like about the women who pioneered horror like the horror genre, and part of it talks about original Gothic novels. And there's a lot of really interesting people that like just don't get read as much anymore.
Yeah, I've got the Mysteries of Udolpho on my TBR, hopefully for this year, but we'll see.
I want to read.
Makes me think of Northern Abbey.
Yeah, well, yeah, I read that last year. She said it made her think of Northanger Abbey. I read that last year, and then I really love reading about, like, the Mysteries of Udolpho is like the text of Gothic romance, and then that gets translated to Jane Eyre, which is a more direct descendant of genre romance today. But I want to read the Mysteries of Udolpho because it's so influential on Jane Austen and Charlotte Bronte and all of them.
Yeah, I would like to also. I picked up a copy of it a couple months ago. It's really big. I found like my bookstore had indie bookstore had like a cheap copy of it, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna get that. I want to read that at some point. So, I know this got pushed back till next year, 2021. I don't know when exactly, but I know that got pushed back.
Also, I'm guessing his vampires are not going to be particularly Gothic.
No,
they can be, but
they're gonna. His
specifically Kristoff's
they're gonna be like rocker vampires, I bet. Well,
but I'm thinking,
but, you know, he's gonna be they're not gonna be. Yeah, no, Only Good Indians definitely more horror, but it has the interesting thing of being like rooted to place in some ways, but I wouldn't call it Gothic necessarily, but it is good.
So that's where I think that, like, even if you wouldn't call it Gothic, I think there's like a Venn diagram of people who would enjoy things that are like Victorian Gothic with things that are Native American inspired, because Native American stuff has so much of that, like the spirit living on,
rooting in place,
like, and all of that is still like the aesthetic of it is completely different, and yet that core like piece of it is present.
Yeah, that's interesting. Rachel, I think you will like The Year of the Witching. It has very interesting themes that I think you will vibe with. Yeah, Jane Eyre.
Jane Eyre.
Yay. I love it. I haven't read it in a long time, but it's a good one.
I reread it like 2 or 3 years. Ashley,
you haven't read it yet. I mean, I read it when I was
young. Very
interested
to hear your.
That would be very interesting.
I'd be interested to hear like an adult's take on it, because I read it when I was 16 and like I've never looked back. But I'd be interested.
An interest. Okay, so this would be an interesting project. Would be to, especially with like a group of people, would be to read Jane Eyre and then read White Sargasso Sea and do a live show.
I was about to say, like, I never read White Sargasso Sea, but I was curious if you had, and then what your thoughts are on this.
I did. So I read it in college. I took a post-colonial. It's really good. I took a class in post-colonial literature, and so we read it, and it's a retelling of part of Jane Eyre, but addressing some of the like colonization issues, which is interesting.
But I mean, okay, correct me if I'm wrong, I haven't read it, but I mean, White Sargasso Sea is doing more than, like, the point of it isn't the colonization part so much as like the Bertha part. Am I wrong?
Yeah, but she's from the West. She's from the West Indies.
I don't want to spoil this for people. Like we've got some of the best non-readers of Jane Eyre in the chat.
But Jane Eyre's been out for so long.
I'm just saying that, like, isn't it more to do with reevaluating your assumptions about a character rather than reevaluating your assumptions about a place and origin?
Well, it's kind of both, but I think I want to say that I appreciate the conversation White Sargasso Sea has opened up. It does somewhat bother me that is now the only perspective that gets talked about with Jane Eyre, because there's so much else there. And so that's my only thing, because like I think that sometimes it's pushing, like I think it's an important recontextualization, but I think sometimes it leads to a decontextualization of that text, and that's a tricky line to balance. But
I mean, at least like in the conversations I had when we had studied it, the way it was talked about was as talking about the problems of putting, basically of colorism and racism as being the cause of the tragedy of what happened in the first place, basically. That it had anyway. So it's very interesting. It would be an interesting conversation to have, but on
a related note, that's not at all Gothic, but since I just read Rage of Dragons by Evan Winter, I don't think either of you have read it, but I would be very curious.
I have it on my TBR, but I haven't read it yet.
Thumbs up or thumbs down?
I'm like there are so many things about it that like I hate, and things about it that I'm like, that's original and kind of cool. So I'm just like, so
I have heard such polarized reviews of it. Like, people hate it, people love it.
I filmed a 30-minute non-spoiler review. I, for 30 minutes, was like, so much that I hate, but so much that I'm like, that was kind of cool. But I was but I bring it up because the book opens. So this isn't a spoiler because it's like prologue by showing you colonization occurring. And the people you follow later now, you know, like so many odd years later, 200 or so, are your main characters are the colonizers. And it's never addressed. Like, it's never like, never does the main character go like, are we the baddies? Like, it's just, and so I'm like, why did you show me in the prologue so that there's no like doubt in my mind that you are the colonizer? It's not like, well, that happened way back when and who's to say. You showed it to me. Like, you literally took time to show me this happening and then didn't address it. Pourquoi? Like, why bring it up so much? It's like Chekhov's gun. I'm like, if you're going to bring up colonization to the forefront, the prologue, the first thing that you tell me about is colonization. And then just
but it's the first in a book, right? It's the first in a series.
The first in a series, yeah.
But it's not
so
like
you don't know yet. Yeah,
True,
but maybe
well,
that's part of what's going to happen in later.
Unless part of the point, I mean, unless part of the point is that colonizers never think they're the bad guys.
Okay, I would say those are all fair points, but you haven't read it. So like what I'm saying is that like in general, yes, that's a possibility. But in what I've seen of this book and how the character is and how he sees the world and how that's treated, I doubt it. Like in theory, those would be options, but I doubt it.
Interesting.
I don't know.
I don't know. I haven't read it yet, but I do have a copy of it. That's interesting.
Anyway, so if you I know on that, let me know what you think.
I will, yeah. Well, like, I know Audrey from Perpetual Pages hated it. It was their least favorite book of the year. But then I've seen glowing reviews from other people, so it's interesting.
Yeah, didn't Daniel Green loves that one.
Yeah, but I almost
I'm like half and half.
I don't know what I
like Abercrombie, and that's about the only thing.
Asking what we're talking about. We're talking about the Rage of Dragons by Editors. It's an adult kind of epic African-inspired fantasy. Yeah, if you have it, you can show them.
This.
It's real pretty.
Yes, it is pretty.
So, like, I would say that, like, because it is an African-inspired fantasy, so, like, what it's doing in terms of having that be the setting and the world and the inspiration and the magic system itself and the, like, caste system that is this, like, social system, all of that, that's why I'm like, that was good and that was cool. And, like, he has certain writing strengths that he has way overused. So like I was like, there's some good stuff in here, but you did it so much that I hate it now. Yeah.
So but like, then it's like his debut. But then it's like his debut novel. So it's like, how is like it's interesting. Okay. Somebody said that. Yeah, I liked Only Good Indians. Oh, I haven't read Alyssa Marr, Graveminder. I feel like I've seen that somewhere, but I don't really know anything about that one. Got several people talking about Rebecca.
Yeah, Rebecca for sure. I think it's got the creepy old house. It's got possible Satan, aka Mrs. Danvers.
I was gonna say like this whole conversation about like people living on beyond their life in terms of the emotional impact. Rebecca is named after the dead person.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Do you need a bigger example than that?
Right. Yeah, for sure. And I think
it's been so long since
that
I've read
interesting. Oh, go ahead.
I think I was like a young teenager when I read it. So like I know some about it, but it's been a long time.
Yeah, I read it after I saw the movie, so I always have liked the movie better.
Wait, which movie? There's like three.
The Hitchcock, the epic
Laurence
Hitchcock
Olivier?
one. Yes, with Laurence Olivier.
Okay,
it's so good. But I think what's interesting about Rebecca is that it's actually an example where I think it's less a question of, is it haunted? Mm-hmm. It's more a question of, is she going crazy?
Slash also, I think just like there is like human beings without a supernatural anything supernatural involved have the capacity to haunt a place. And
like the idea of her is what's haunting, not like actually her ghost. Yeah, that's true.
But I was going to say, okay, so since you love that old movie, remind me to send to you, or just like anybody wants to Google it. There's a British sketch that's my favorite, like sketch pair, and they are the ones that I referenced yesterday when I was like messaging you on your live chat. But they have a sketch that's based on the old Rebecca black and white movie. And basically the sketch is that, like, you know, old Hollywood, like the execs were like, you can't have a movie named Rebecca and not have Rebecca in it. So it's that, like, Rebecca is alive and everything is for the future Mrs. De Winter, and that she can't have that dress because that's for the future Mrs. De Winter. It's so funny.
That's a fantastic. Well, I will say, if people haven't seen that Laurence Olivier movie, it is and you like kind of that vibe, it's well worth seeking out. It's pretty great,
and it's still haunting. I mean, I feel like black and white movies, by like their very nature, can be more haunting than a modern movie, just because they have this kind of, they in and of themselves feel like a haunted artifact.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I can see that. Mara, do you have any thoughts on this? No.
I mean, St. Well, I mean, I literally wrote, like, a huge chunk of my thesis was talking about how St. John represents, like, the Augustan idea of duty, and Rochester is representing the Augustan idea of passion and how you have to have both. And the problem with St. John is that he has all duty but no passion. He seems like he'd be a real bummer at a party.
Yeah, I think it's interesting.
But you're saying it's Spock versus Kirk.
Kind of. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm going to make an entire video essay about how people misread the ending of Jane Eyre because they don't understand that it's about Kirk in that situation becoming more responsible and, like, transforming and becoming a leader. It's not like a hollow, drives me, anyway. You'll get a whole video essay from me on this at some point.
I mean, I like Jane Eyre a lot. I'm not the expert or the fan that you are, so I'm wondering how you feel about the Ang Lee movie with Michael Fassbender.
Oh, I watched a little bit of it and I was like, this Jane is far too pretty. I'm done.
I think Mia Wasikowska, she can't help being born pretty, but she does a good job.
Hollywood will never create a good Jane Eyre because they will never cast someone who's truly just like normal looking.
I was gonna say, of the Jane Eyres we've had, she's on the more unfortunate looking side.
They tried to, like, norm her down, but, like,
can I just say that, like, she is much closer to being ugly like Jane Eyre than Michael Fassbender is to being unfortunate looking. When he asks her, like, if she thinks he's attractive, she's like, no. I'm just like, you lie! You lie!
I mean, I probably wouldn't mind watching just Michael Fassbender in some fancy costumes if it wasn't Jane Eyre. Like, I wouldn't hate that.
Playing Mr. Rochester, but he's also too handsome to play Mr. Rochester.
But yeah, I know Mr. Rochester is problematic, but in my heart, I'm still 16-year-old Mara reading it for the first time and, you know, loving it, eating it up with a spoon.
Yep. I get it. Widow of Rose?
Not yet. I have it, and I've not yet read it, but I've heard that it is a great Gothic romance. It came out, I think, early this year, late last year, and I've heard basically nothing but great things. So
yeah, I want to read that too. It's on my.
I've heard it's great.
I don't know what this reference is, but Silver
Skin. Is that like Edward Cullen sparkling? He's definitely a monster, so.
I don't know. What is this? What about? I don't know what this is. Okay, I don't know what that is, but
I don't know.
Rebecca. Oh, then I said Rebecca. Oh, okay, yeah, we talked about that.
Rebecca.
Okay. Sorry, I was confused. Joshana with her rant video, Rage It, Joshana. Oh yeah, didn't she? She did a rant video on Rage of the Winters one, didn't she?
Oh, did she hate it?
I think so.
I mean, when I put it on, did I talk about it? I don't. At some point, she I hauled it, and Shoshana commented on my haul, and it was just like, "You're gonna hate it." I was like, "All right."
And then you mixed feelings. The Beautiful. Okay, so I maybe in the minority. I really loved The Beautiful. I don't know. Is it Gothic? I don't know if I would call it Gothic as much. Well, it has kind of. It's very atmospheric. It's got vampires, and it's set in 1800s New Orleans. The thing that I
call that not Gothic.
If it's in the 1800s, it's Gothic. Close.
Does it feel like there's smoke billowing around? You know,
are there corsets?
What?
Are there corsets? Is there death? Then yes, it's Gothic.
Yeah, pretty much. I really liked it. I think it was mismarketed. Like, I think people marketed it hard as like the return of vampires, and then everybody wanted it to be like a paranormal romance. And at least the second book is more of that, but the first book in the series is more of a murder mystery. So, like, I think it was.
I'm cool with that. I love a murder mystery.
Yeah. I thought it was really good, but somebody loved Rage of Dragons. Beloved. I have not read Toni Morrison, but I mean to. But then I hear it's depressing, and then I keep putting it off. But
yeah, I read it when I was 16 and like wasn't into it. I wonder if I would have liked it better as an adult, but well, funny story. So this was our family road trip book. So we were driving around listening to it. We were all like, who picked that? I think my mom, she was like, I've heard this is a great book, which, I mean, it's a classic. It is a great book. So we were listening and we were going, and then it gets to this part where there's like kind of a metaphor, but kind of actually someone's hand becomes a pickaxe. And I was just like, is anybody else a little lost? And we were all like, yes, I'm so confused. What's happening? And this is like at page like 450 of a 500-page book or whatever. So finally we were all like, well, we've gotten this far. We have to finish it. So I didn't have a great outing with it, but I definitely want to read. I think my next one from her is going to be like The Bluest Eye or maybe Song of Solomon. Like, I really want to read her. And I think as an adult, I would appreciate it a lot more.
There's been a few books that just, I mean, on the topic of like, you're in the wrong age to read it, that like, fortunately I did decide to reread later. So like the first time I read Vicious by V.E. Schwab, nope. But in fairness, I thought Vicious would be like The Prestige, and it could not be more different from The Prestige. So
that is kind of how they sold that book, yeah.
Really? So then I reread it, and I was like, oh, I actually really like this.
Yeah, I saw several people talking about it, like The Prestige. I haven't finished it, but yeah.
That's very bizarre. I don't understand why they would make that comparison. Yeah, sometimes.
I mean, in terms of you have two rivals that are like doing anything that they can to each other that are like,
I guess.
Magic-y.
Like, yeah, I guess so. It's more like it's more similar to, what was that? The Flatliners.
I was gonna say, I feel like the emotional like journey of those two characters in Vicious could be compared to Prestige, but the rest of it, no.
Interesting. Based on this, Beloved, based on the story of Margaret Garner. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know who. Here we go. Oh,
yeah, that's what the whole book is about, and it's intense.
That's a lot. Yeah. It's one of those things where like I want to read Toni Morrison at some point, but it's like I feel like I have to be in the right headspace for it.
Yeah, I think you have to like, because she like, I mean, it's like in retrospect, I'm like, oh, that's beautiful writing, and like I've read passages of it since then, like in different whatever, and it's like, oh, that's beautiful. I think you just have to know it's like she's gonna go there. And the writing is not spoon-fed to you, so you also it requires like active participation.
Yeah. Billy is saying Beloved is a good audio and physical book experience. Oh, like to read them together. I could see that. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Hi, Lydia.
Hello.
You made it. Right,
Shan mentions that Simone St. James does great creepy, spooky vibes, and I definitely agree with that.
Yes. Yeah. Simone St. James is great. And Kat Winter too, actually. I haven't read a lot from her. I read her The Raven's Tale, I think, or something Raven. It was her YA retelling of the early life of Edgar Allan Poe, and it was pretty good.
So I was just thinking, like, I don't know actually what made me think of it, but like I would never ever consider it Gothic, and yet there's something about it that evokes a similar emotional response from me as something that I would consider Gothic, and that's Neil Gaiman. Neil Gaiman's like the nature of supernatural horrors that he includes in his stories. They have that je ne sais quoi that we've been trying to define that Gothic has, without that place in time, haunted house, memento mori, Victorian thing. Like there's just something that's like humanly.
I don't know about. I would say the ocean at the end of the lane has that.
Yeah, but at the same time, I would never have considered, like, if you asked me if that was Gothic, I'd be like, no, not at all. But it is.
I mean, I would think of it as kind of Gothic. I mean, I feel like it has kind of Gothic vibes, and it does have like
the supernatural elements aren't tied to place, that, or at least not the house. It's tied to like a place that may or may not even exist. Like the ocean, the eponymous ocean may or may not even exist. So it's all kind of on this like temporal plane. And for that reason, I would never consider it Gothic. And yet the like very human elements to experience.
Well, and it's also like is it supernatural or is it not?
Yeah, which is one of my favorite things about the end of the lane is that like, did any of that happen or did that kid just get traumatized? Like,
right. Yeah. It's like, is this how he's dealing with trauma or both? Yeah. I think it's definitely got Gothic vibes, which is interesting. Year of the Witching we talked about earlier, definitely, I agree, has major Gothic vibes. I love it. It's definitely, I think, like, I don't know, I guess not everybody really loved it. Part of it is the thematically, it's just so interesting, like, because it's set in this like small town that's run by, I mean, it's basically kind of like a religious cult sort of, and like there are traditional horror in the year of the what?
Is it take place in the present day or when does it take place?
It's unclear, but it would be past-ish, but it's not anything real. Like it's like a like past-ish, has past vibes to it, but it's like another world sort of.
Because the cover makes it pilgrims.
Yeah. Well, because it sort of reads a little bit like Handmaid's Tale meets Salem, in some ways, like it's got in terms of thematic content. And what's interesting is it's got traditional horror elements, but like for me, the most horrific things were like the abuse of power by people in religious authority and like the way they abused women and girls and the way that they like did all these horrible things. So it was just interesting, like thematically, it kind of,
that's a thing.
Another Jane Eyre fan. The Silent Companions. I don't know that one.
Heard of that one?
I haven't either.
But it sounds.
Oh, I think I've seen that on Bookstagram, and every time I see it on Bookstagram, I'm like, "Ooh, I should get that," and then I immediately forget about it because it's a pretty cover.
Should look it up.
Oh, let's see. Shan Reeds is asking for a read-alike for The Ocean at the End of the Lane.
There is no. There is only one Neil Gaiman. Nothing is like what Neil Gaiman writes.
Oh, okay. There is but one Neil Gaiman.
Honestly, I feel like for how somebody becomes a favorite author of mine is that I feel like no one else does what they do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. At least no one does it as well for them to be a very favorite.
It's not even like as well. It's not like I've seen people do shitty Gaiman. I'm just like, there's just like this unique je ne sais quoi to like his storytelling that I'm just like, if I read it, I'm like, oh, this is Neil Gaiman. Like, this isn't like, you know what I mean?
That's interesting. I don't know. Like, whereas I've had mixed experiences with him, like I really have not liked of his books that I've read, and then I've loved others.
You're lucky that our friendship is longstanding and important.
You know. I love Ocean at the End of the Lane, though.
Okay, Caitlin Nicole says, apparently The Bloody Chamber is Gothic. It's on my TBR. The Bloody Chamber is one of my, probably a top 10 all-time favorite book for me. It is fantastic.
Really?
Bethany almost got it in my books I was going to make you read, and I couldn't decide how you would feel about it, so I held back.
It's in your top 10. Why are you depriving Bethany?
I know, right?
Well, it's real... I don't know. I could see you loving it, but I could also see you not loving it. No, it's a very strong flavor.
Okay. Fair enough. Which is one of the things where, like, I get what you mean. Whereas some of my favorite books are very strong flavors, but then
it's true. It's true, but it's basically feminist retellings of fairy tales, like very dark fairy tales. And it's so good.
I bet Martha would like Language of Thorns by Leigh Bardugo based on what you just said. Don't you think?
Maybe, although those aren't like so dark. They're like they have like Russian vibes to them.
Oh, I love a fairy tale retelling in general, so that's
plus Language of Thorns is gorgeously illustrated, feminist, dark, creepy Russian thing. I think Martha would be a fan.
Yeah, these are all things that I, in theory, should like. I started reading Ninth House and wasn't loving the writing. So
Language of Thorns is written like fairy tales, like the language
like fairy tales is very different.
Gotcha. Yeah. Did you see that the Hazel Wood is going to have a whole just book of the dark fairy tales come out next year? That I'm excited Or it's going to be the original. It's going to be the
Hinterlands. Oh yeah.
I just realized
that I'm going to read.
I just realized that in my reviews and praise of the Hazelwood, I referred to the Hazelwood as being Gaiman-esque. So whoops.
Oh, there you go. Okay, Gaiman-esque. There you go.
Hey.
Tituba. Ooh, like Tituba from Salem Witch Trials. Okay.
Interesting.
Huh. I like that title.
Yeah, Ocean is great. Okay, I did not like American Gods.
I feel like most people don't.
It was so boring.
Famous. I feel like anytime being a fan of Gaiman, who's read like nearly everything he's written, people are always like, so do I start with American Gods? And I'm like, well, I mean, I did start with American Gods, but I do not recommend that to anybody ever. Because like, that's a very particular project. And like most of what Neil Gaiman writes is short. He's like known for his brevity. And American Gods is like,
I don't like road trip books. I also don't like
I can like a road trip book depending, but I want to read American Gods first from him because the number one read-alike people tell me for the library at Mount Char is American Gods, and I adore the library at Mount Char. So
well, I mean, I guess so. The reason I
like library at Mount
Char.
Not
start with that because of that or anything, but just because I don't think it's a good example of what his writing is like in general. So it's like if you're going to decide whether or not Gaiman is for you, don't start with American Gods because like it's very different from the other stuff that he's written.
If I want to start with American Gods, Leanna, I'll start with American Gods.
I'm just saying, like, if somebody wants to see if Gaiman is for them,
tell me what to do.
Go with that.
Yeah. The number one way to get me to not do what you want me to do is to tell me to do it.
Yeah. Okay.
Mara,
please don't read the rest of the first law.
Oh, okay. Well, I've got the audio. I'm starting right now.
Don't do it. Never ever do it.
It's opposite day. That's how you get me to do things.
Oh my gosh. You know, I don't know, like American Gods, if you go in expecting it to be like Library of Mount Char, I'm not sure you'll like.
Oh, really? Okay.
It's interesting. I mean, I can see why people
we're losing you a little bit.
Bethany. Okay, well, in the meantime,
can you tell me I don't. Oh wait, I can see people would say that. Am I back?
Oh,
you're back.
Maybe she's
we
back.
Can hear you, but you're not moving.
Oh man, I can hear you guys.
Okay, we can hear you now. You're back.
Yeah. Okay, good. Oh goodness. Yeah, no, I was just gonna say like I can see why people would say that, but it's also quite different. Like Library of Mount Char is much weirder and much darker and doesn't.
That's why I like the Library of Mount Char.
Question. Okay, I intend to read the Library of Mount Char, but like I know how dark and twisty American Gods is, so like I'm finding it hard to swallow that it's like
it's a dark AF book. Like it's one of my all-time favorites. But it's not for
a little much. I think I gave it like 3 stars. Like I get it, but it was like, I don't know. And I kind of hated the ending. I hated like the point behind the. I don't know. I had issues. I didn't love it, but I get it.
I got it, and I loved it.
I know. So yeah, no,
I have a dark heart.
And weirder than
library. I feel like I'm gonna like. Yeah, one of the things I like about Gaiman is how dark and twisty it is. So if you're saying Library of Mount Char is like that, but even darker and twistier, like I feel like I'm gonna like it.
It's disturbing. It's very disturbing. Like there's a lot of
but I don't know. I think if you like grimdark already, I don't think Leanna will be too shocked by it.
Yeah. Although grimdark is never, in my experience, is not as dark as I expect it to be. You know, I mean, like
well, you haven't read the last of the Poppy Wars series.
It's thanks to Mara that I haven't read Dragon Republic long. Like it's so dark.
Those are dark because they're like gritty, realistic military stuff. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't call that like a grimdark fantasy. Yeah.
Wait, okay. On a related note, in terms of it being dark and twisty,
I haven't read this one.
100% not for you, Mara. But Bethany, have you read Dark Age by Pierce Brown?
Not yet. I haven't read Iron Gold yet. Still need to read Iron Gold.
Because like without any spoilers, I just finished Dark Age and Iron Gold, yes, it expanded the world. Yes, there's more characters whose POVs you get, but it's still very much Red Rising. Dark Age talk about, to use Pierce Brown's favorite expression, changing the paradigm. There is so much stuff in Dark Age that I was like, I expected to have my heart ripped out, but like, what is any of this? Like, oh my God. Like, there's so many twisty, dark, like out of nowhere things that I'm like, I didn't know this was a thing in this universe. Like,
I love it when authors
what is this?
Like, I really like it. That's part of why I like R.F. Kuang too, is like she is not afraid to kill people. She's not afraid to cause harm to her characters.
No,
like,
okay,
I appreciate it.
No, okay. Pierce Brown has been killing characters for like 4 books. Like, that's expected. Dark Age, new shit, completely new shit, where I'm just like, what is that? What is happening? What is this?
Angela Carter. Yeah, Angela Carter wrote The Bloody Chamber.
Oh, really? Interesting. I have a book on her TBR of hers on my TBR because I've not read her and I've been meaning to. That's interesting. Huh.
Yeah.
People call the Poppy. Do people call the Poppy War series grimdark? That's interesting.
Yeah.
Huh.
I mean, it's grimdark. Not that.
I mean, it's realistic military fantasy.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's more what I think.
Just dark.
It is dark. I mean, it is dark. I guess when I think of grimdark, I don't think of. I mean, I guess it could be. Yeah, it's interesting. It's just not.
What is it lacking for you to call it grimdark?
I guess to me, it feels so rooted in history that I don't categorize it the same way. But I could see it. I mean, I guess thematically it's doing similar things to like grimdark. I think I just think of it because it's rooted in like real history. I just haven't that's not how
you weren't thinking about it that way.
I wasn't about it that way. Like in my head. I mean, I can see it. Like now that you say it, I just wouldn't have like made that connection. So
yeah, it definitely is.
That's very interesting. Okay. I am supposed to be reading that this month. I hear good things. It should be fun. Bone Shard Daughter.
Daughter.
Yeah. Somebody loved my Library of Mount Char and hated American Gods. So
okay.
There's that.
Good data point. Salute to you for being a fellow lover of Library of Mount Char. We are an elite and awesome cadre.
So I didn't love either of them, but for different reasons. Like I thought American Gods was boring, and I thought Library at Mount Char was too disturbing. So it wasn't boring.
Library at Mount Char broke you. I remember you being like, "This is a lot."
Like, what is
Bethany? I know it's sometimes referred to as, but it is not technically a sequel to American Gods. But have you read Anansi Boys?
I have not. No.
Because I think you'd like that better. Because it's nothing like American Gods, except in terms of the anthropomorphized like deities. But the story is nothing like American Gods. It's about the sons of Mr. Nancy, who is Anansi the spider.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'd be open to reading more from him at some point. It's just one of those things that hasn't risen super high in my, list of things.
Every October, I read Coraline. Because it's for kids, but that's scary as fuck. So read Coraline. That's Gothic. Oh my God, The Other Mother? That's a Gothic horror monster.
I read the graphic novel of Coraline. Because I accidentally bought the graphic novel instead of the book, so I read that.
Whoopsie.
You're like, guess we're reading the
graphic novel. Okay, that's fine. Oh, you answered that. Okay. Somebody else. American Gods. Okay.
Sandman. I would say I was thinking about this earlier, and then I forgot about it. Sandman doesn't have a haunted house, and it doesn't have ancestors, and it doesn't have any of that, and yet there's something once again because of Gaiman's style of horror that to me evokes a similar Gothic kind of feeling for what I feel when I read Gothic. So Sandman has these I think maybe it's because these archetypal rooted in human cultures and human memory type deities that are being personified.
Mm-hmm.
Plus the art is scary as fuck.
Yeah. Have you guys read this?
I haven't. I've been recommended that book a few times, but I've not read it. It's a very distinctive cover.
Gothic romance without a tragic ending. So Hester Fox. I mean, there are a lot of tragic things that happen, but the endings are not tragic.
Yeah, I don't think Gothic romances have tragic actually, definitionally, if it's a romance, it can't have a tragic ending. Otherwise, it would be a Gothic melodrama.
There you go. But yeah, I mean, tragic things can happen in the process of getting to the ending. But yeah, Hester Fox.
Yeah, for sure.
To get off.
Wait, okay, but so like Wuthering Heights has a tragic ending.
But it's
because
not
Wuthering Heights is not a Gothic romance. That is the problem, is people read that like it's a romance, and it's well, let me rephrase. It is in the romantic tradition in the same way of like romanticism, so but it is not a genre romance.
This person might have been asking for that, when things are like lumped together with like this like romantic tradition of the Gothic, something that doesn't end tragically like fucking Wuthering Heights.
Yeah, I mean Jane Eyre, right? Like that's the other side of the coin.
It's a bittersweet ending. I wouldn't say that's a happy ending.
Well, that's because you're not reading it right. You watch my video essay.
I just thought it was a good ending. I mean,
I think it's a good ending, but it's not like Sunshine and Lollipops. Like it's.
Well, but that doesn't mean that's not happy. Happy endings don't have to be like, oh, everything is perfect. Like a lot of romances end with like
happy and tragic are the spectrum, and then in the middle you have like, you know, bittersweet, or you have like, you know, there's like stuff in the middle. But if you say happy ending, I'm like Sunshine Lollipops.
I don't know. I guess I just disagree with that. Like, to me, a happy ending doesn't have to mean everything is like perfect. It just means that you've come out the other side. You have a like, it's a hopeful ending. That to me is what a happy ending means.
So I would make a distinction. I would say that
hey, Bree,
not a happy ending.
Oh, hey, Bree.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Bree
Rachel
is like. Bree should be on this because Bree is all about the Gothic.
Yeah.
She's
got, yeah, I love it. Like she'll show these amazing like old school Gothic romance novels with these great covers. They always make me want to read them. They look great.
And you know what we haven't she and I were DMing. Sorry. I was gonna say she and I were DMing last year about when Hester Fox's book last year was coming out, and just talking about how like it feels like in contemporary like romance, today's romance, we are ready for a Gothic revival. Like we are ready for more Gothic romances because they were so popular from like the 60s to the early 90s. Mm-hmm. And like then they kind of fell off. Like there's not been a lot of them published since then. Mm-hmm. And I just feel like we're ready. Like I feel like like our bodies are ready publishing if like we can put this energy out there.
There's nothing like a pandemic to make us crave like
right? Yeah. If not now, when?
Well, what I think is really interesting, and I think this is what I was talking about the outsider thing, is I think now especially it also offers interesting ways of talking about like social issues. So like talking about Year of the Witching, she is biracial. And essentially, like Black people are like considered lower class in their society and live on the outskirts of things and are like oppressed. And so it also uses like with the outsider status and in other things I've read too, it can use it as a way of talking about in like a creepy way, kind of like Get Out, honestly.
Heathcliff was the original biracial Gothic hero.
I mean, you're not wrong. That's interesting.
Yeah.
That's why I got to read the classic.
Well, that's interesting. Then you think
about that is interesting.
Yeah, because like Heathcliff is biracial, and then you know there's definitely a strong element of biracialness in Jane Eyre. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting that the Brontes
it's almost
element
like
going through their major works
today in classics for a reason.
It's almost like, well, no. Do you know what that really tells me? Just based on some Twitter bullshit that's been going on recently. It's a reminder that there's always been non-white people around in predominantly white spaces, even if we try to erase them.
Romance land, yeah.
Are you sure? That doesn't coincide with when I was taught in high school.
Oh, you're right. He's an anti-hero.
Yeah,
he's a whiny man-child who's had a lot of, he's like,
if you're talking to Stephanie Meyer, he's a hero. Burn.
Well, her heroes are perpetrate not quite genocide, but like racially motivated murder, right? Like that was what I took from that Midnight Sun chat. So
without ever having read Twilight or 50 Shades, to me, I was always compared the situation as like pouring water through used coffee grounds, where you've got like fresh coffee, which is Wuthering Heights, But then we used the same grounds and got a really weird, watered down, incorrect Twilight. And then we got a really watered down, incorrect Pisswater that was 50 Shades.
Okay, can I just tell you though, I read the first book of Twilight as a young adult and noped out of it. I was like, I deserve better than this. But then I've never read a 50 Shades book. I will probably have to eventually, but I've never actually read a 50 Shades. But one day,
have to.
Well, if I want to write about romance, like if I want to write some like nonfiction-y stuff, I feel like I'm going to have to actually read it.
Yeah.
But I avoided it in my thesis, but I'm going to have to eventually. But I did have a day. Well, okay. I did have a day where I got turned and I binge watched all 3 of the 50 Shades movies. And I have to tell you, that was a fun day. I recommend that because it's the best. Just like, I was drunk. I was like catcalling the screen by myself. I was laughing out loud so many times. Like, it was a good time. I recommend, if you're going to go for an experience in those 2 properties, that would be the experience I recommend.
I mean, okay, so you know how I've watched probably like 100 hours worth of Rise of Skywalker rants. I've watched an almost equivalent amount of 50 Shades rants, even though I've never
Folding Ideas has a wonderful trio of them. Jenny Nicholson has some great ones.
Jenny Nicholson is so good. Her like lipstick homage to the weird lipstick in the movie.
Oh my God.
Anyway. Yeah. Sorry, back to so yes, Gothic romances. Bree is gonna lead the charge and lead us to have them come back because we're ready.
You know who I want to I imagine it would be like Chef's Kiss is I want to see Grace Draven write a Gothic romance. I think that would be
I bet that would be good. Yeah, I would read that.
That would be interesting. Okay, so in this revival, what is a perfect plot in this revival of Gothic?
Return to the Victorian era.
Well, I mean, it's just Jane Eyre fan fiction, really, I think. Just derivatives of that. You just need a governess. You need a broody guy who's older than her and who might be, possibly an abuser, but hopefully not when you get to the end of it. Yeah.
I think for a modern audience, something that's more along the lines of Rebecca would probably resonate more.
I could see that. I mean, I think even
maybe
for
in the shadow of like a previous love interest and like the way that
like as a contemporary.
Yeah, or even
like if it was because that would be fun.
Contemporary, it's a contemporary audience, so the themes of it need to resonate with a contemporary audience,
right? But I would like to see. I mean, I would love some more Gothic historic. Like I would like more just what Hester Fox is doing.
Yeah,
that would be great.
Yeah.
But if I would be very interested to see people trying to write contemporary Gothic romance, like set in a contemporary setting. I would be into seeing what that was like.
That would be interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Bree says Alyssa Cole could write an amazing Gothic.
I mean, what couldn't she write?
First of all, she can do anything. Second of all, I'm going to tell you, I almost brought up When No One Is Watching as an example of having somewhat of a Gothic feel because it is sold as a thriller, but I think it reads much more horror. And there's like, it's all about that neighborhood and being rooted in that place and not knowing who does or doesn't belong there. So like it definitely has some Gothic themes to it, I think.
That feels like a perfect example of a revival of Gothic. I was so excited when I saw that Libra FM was offering the audio for influencers this month because I was like, yes!
Oh, nice. Okay. Oh, I bet that would be good as audio too.
I hope so. I'm excited for it. Ooh, okay, Bree.
Oh, Bree, let me know if you want a buddy read. I feel like I think I would need some moral support to get through it. So let me know if you want to read that.
But do not forget that before Stephanie Meyer gave us Midnight Sun, 50 Shades did it first. You also have that to get through.
The Mister. I honestly kind of want to read The Mister more than I even want to read the original 3 because I think The Mister would just lay bare the fact that Christian Grey is a domestic abuser.
Mara, will you cap 50 Shades the way you did Harry Potter?
I mean, if I read the books, then maybe I'll have to. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know about 50 Shades. I've already got like 2 romance projects I'm kind of working on right now. So like, that's like,
I think it's everything you because see, I can enjoy an alpha sort of ironically, and I just don't think there's anything about that you could get into.
No,
like, not anything there for you.
It is not my deal. No, Grace Draven would kill it. Yeah, definitely. Oh,
ooh,
like Hades.
Two Goodreads. I've not heard of that one.
Okay.
Oh, I have it on my Kindle. Y'all aren't true fans like Grace Draven.
You are definitely more of a Grace Draven fan.
Oh, that could be good actually. Like a Victorian Gothic romance, but gay. Yeah.
Ooh, I feel like maybe Sebastian or KJ Charles have done that. That seems like something they would do.
You know what? I didn't think of it in these terms before, but the reason that okay, let me take you through what I thought about in my head before I started talking, because that might help. I went through this.
Take us on the journey, Liene.
Okay, so Grace Draven wrote Entreat Me, which is a Beauty and the Beast retelling, and that's what got me thinking the like isolated location where the location doesn't change, and like there's like magic going on in that location, and like you're learning about the people there, and that's when I was just like, you know what? Instead of Beauty and the Beast, we just like Gothic that. No, that's what got me thinking that. But then it also got me thinking about why and how the animated Beauty and the Beast is like, without argument, if you disagree with me, you're wrong, better than the live action one, because of the like very Gothic feel to when Belle gets to the castle. It is dark shadows and who really lives here and what is going on, and learning about like the dark secrets of like the past, and then slowly it brightening up as she learns. Like, it is so Gothic. And so like honestly, there's so many Beauty and the Beast retellings, but the thing that all of these Beauty and the Beast retellings is missing is it being Gothic. So someone needs to truly write a Gothic mystery romance Beauty and the Beast thing. Do it.
You know what? This is making me realize my love for Beauty and the Beast might be why I like a dominant heroine in a Gothic romance. Because I mean, she like literally tames the beast. I mean, this is, you know, speaking of which, like one of the projects I'm now setting for myself is finding a bunch of, not many, it is hard to find. I was asking about this on Mara's live stream last night, but like historical romances with a submissive hero and a dominant heroine, there are not many of them out there, but I'm going to read them and make a video about it.
And then write one of your own, I hope.
That would be interesting. We'll see.
I don't know. Your own, and I hope that part of it is that they have, like, I feel like in a historical, like, you know, you think of what all the like accoutrement and equipment that the 50 Shades people have, but I would love to see all that, like the historically versions of it. So like, what is a, you know, what are the whips like in the historical BDSM? Yeah. I'd be very.
Writing horses, so they have that intense.
Like I like something on the level of the Evil Lee one, where it's like there's very mild power play, but there's not. It's not that, because like I don't know if I could go if I could do something quite that. But it is what?
You gotta get into it. Come on, feel the fantasy.
I think I just like the power dynamic thing bugs me. Okay, what else? Oh, we read that.
He's like, I just want the woman to be in charge. That's all I care about. I'm not into
really what it is I don't want like the guy to be dominating. That's really, I just don't want that. That's really what it is. But apparently most people don't agree with me, because that's not what everybody's writing. So I guess I'm in the minority.
Well, like the theory is that in a romance, the reason why women like the alpha is because in real life, women have to be in charge of so much of what goes on in their relationships, that the fantasy of the alpha is that you have someone who's completely in tune with your needs and is going to take care of everything for you, and you just have to lay back and let him do it. That's the theory behind why it's so popular.
You said lay back and let him do it. I was like, and think of England.
Well, no. Basically, the theory is he's in charge of everything from like your money, your job, to your orgasms. Like he's in charge of all of it. You don't have to. But maybe, Bethany, that belies the fact that in your relationship you don't have to be in charge of everything. So that's not an appealing fantasy to you. So what a lovely testament to your relationship, IRL.
Like, well, and also I think like I'm just also the kind of person where I never probably would have been in a relationship long term where I would have let that happen, because I don't want someone else to be in control of everything.
Okay, so like I not that you know this about me because we don't like live together on a daily basis, but like my mom knows. Like I don't live with my mom, but like she knows that like literally anytime you state something as a directive, I will say, don't tell me what to do. So like there's so many times thinking a romance where like it's literally like the sexy scene and he like tells her like where to put it or what to touch or whatever. And always I'm like, don't tell me what to do.
Well, yeah. I'm not sure how I would respond to that in real life, but in a romance, like that's the fantasy is that like he knows what you want. This also gets into the whole forced seduction thing, which we could have a whole seminar on. But
Also, can we agree that no one should use the word "mine" so many times?
Billy is loving when no one is watching right now. Yay!
Yeah, it's so good.
Somebody else is saying the audiobook was really good. Yay, I'm excited. It's coming this month. I'm gonna listen to it.
That could be enough. What is that?
All right, we got the house and everything else will be old and deteriorating.
Oh, is that also cool?
What?
Yeah, like as an idea of how you would put it in a contemporary setting.
Oh. Yeah.
And I think that tends to be the route a lot of people go when they're writing Gothics in a contemporary setting is that they often put them in a creepy house. And that like
have you guys I haven't read the graphic novels because I never read graphic novels, but have you read or then watched the Netflix adaptation of Lock and Key?
No.
Because that's like that, where they like it's like this old family house.
I've always
dad specifically didn't want to live in anymore because like, and they didn't know why, but he died, so they moved back to the family house. And there's all these keys that open like magical doors, but it's like not happy, man. It's not Narnia. So like, it's this old creepy house with secrets, and those secrets are like skeleton keys that open magical doors. But they're like modern kids that are like living in. It's like in Maine or something.
Why not me?
Yeah, those like the covers to those appeal to me, but I've never actually read them. You know what else? Okay, interesting. Yeah, I haven't seen that. Oh, I'm sorry, Cheryl. Well, I'm glad you're having fun with the.
I was just thinking that I was like, something is Gothic to me, but at some point there is a skeleton key. It is Gothic. Done.
I like skeleton keys. Catherine, you're reading it, right, Mara?
Yeah, I got 50 pages in and stalled out. Yeah, I saw that in your video, and I was like, oh, Ashley did not like this. I have stalled out on it. I'm going to come back to it. I think because so many people didn't like it, maybe my expectations will be low enough that I can get something out of it. I was liking what I had read up to that point. I don't know. It sounds like maybe it just doesn't have a plot. That's kind of what I've gathered is that there's not a lot of plot.
Yeah, I read like 50 pages too, and I was just like, I didn't actively DNF it, but I was just like, I'm done for now. I will read something.
Yeah, that's literally what happened to me too. I just sort of put it down.
Yeah, I remember seeing a couple of tweets that Ashley sent out when she was reading them, and it wasn't just about it not having a plot, but I don't know. I don't know. It's interesting. We'll see.
The author was lovely. She was on a panel I hosted for Social Distance.
Yeah, she seemed
and the cover is lovely. Let's not forget that.
Good cover.
Oh, the cover is great.
Yeah, Rachel. No, it is. I did know it was graphic novels, but people are saying the comics are so much better.
Oh,
Joe Hill did them. Interesting.
I like I've been trying to get into more graphic novels recently.
Sandman was fantastic. The first 3 volumes.
Every Heart a Doorway. You know what? Yeah, the ones in with Jack and Jill have kind of Gothic vibes.
Yeah, I would say Down Among the Sticks and Bones feels pretty Gothic once they get to their world. I mean, it's literally Frankenstein's monster and Dracula, so.
Speaking of, I thought of this earlier and I was like, I'll bring it up later. Frankenstein / The Dark Descent of Elizabeth Frankenstein. That.
Dark Descent of Elizabeth Frankenstein is so good.
I haven't read it yet, but I haven't.
Dark Descent of Elizabeth Frankenstein. That book is 10 out of 5 stars.
It's really good, man. The character work is just like, it's like a feminist take. It's
especially if you have read the actual Frankenstein and you're not just basing it on the old Zipperneck from Hollywood. Like if you actually read the real Frankenstein.
What if I've only seen Young Frankenstein?
No.
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 You should read the original first. You'll get more out of it.
I've read Frankenstein, but I
feel like Mara has read Frankenstein.
I have, but I just any chance to bring
favorite.
up Young Frankenstein, I will take it because I adore Young Frankenstein.
Fair enough. No, yeah, Dark Descent of Elizabeth Frankenstein is very good.
Like that's
that
how
would
you
be a good to reread. I need to actually buy it at some point. I want to finish a copy of it. Well, it's one of those things that I have limited shelf space.
But the book is
it's been on my wish list.
It's like this big.
I had an arc of it, and I read really deep arcs, and then I just never got around to buying a finished copy. And
what do you do with your arcs, Bethany? Sometimes you send them to me.
Yeah, sometimes I send them to people, or like there's a local like nonprofit bookstore I'll donate some of them to sometimes, or like do giveaways, or I don't know.
Well, you get a lot more physical
right
ones
now.
than I get.
Right now I have like many because of COVID that are stacked up in my closet. I was finally able to go and sell the 50 non-arc books that I unhauled and stuck in my closet because they finally started buying back books at my
no one is buying books near me. I have so many books to unhaul and they're just sitting there.
Oh, really? See, I was taking them to the little free libraries around me, but everybody's doing that, so they're overflowing. And so finally McKay's opened back up, and so I got to do a run over there and take what I had. But yeah.
No,
I'm still waiting to find out. They're offering 50% more store credit, which I will take because I'll use it to buy books, but I'm still waiting to find out how much they're going to give me. They're going to email me but I just
feel like all these used bookstores in LA, they are selling books, and I'm like, at some point they're gonna need to start buying them because y'all gonna run out.
I mean, the good news is that in Tennessee, people are just acting like nothing's going on. So
that's the good news. I'm sorry, what?
I mean, in terms of them actually still selling books.
Somebody wants Jane Eyre fan fiction.
There is Jane Eyre fan fiction.
I mean, there's plenty of it out there.
Jane Eyre fan fiction.
I don't think I don't have enough angst in my heart to properly write that. It's one of the only kind of angsty things that I truly enjoy.
Just get some wines.
Yeah, I'll just
as
make lightning strike all the time. And
as Hemingway said, "Write drunk, edit sober."
Bitter Root.
Write drunk, edit drunk. Oh, I've heard that's really good. I'm glad to hear you enjoyed it as well. Okay, I'll stock that away.
Yeah, other people are saying too. Little free libraries are really full. We don't have a lot here, but that's great.
I live in the yuppie part of Nashville. So
I was gonna say that's usually
we love a little free library.
There's not little free libraries in urban areas.
Yeah, there are many in urban areas. I live in lower Manhattan, and they're not.
I live in Los Angeles.
Yeah,
there's no little free libraries.
They're so cute. I always love it. I'll see people sometimes in vlogs who will drive around and all these little free libraries. I'm like, that's so nice. I don't have a car and I don't have that many around me, but that's so nice.
Well, that's part of the controversy of little free libraries, that the idea is supposed to be to improve access for books to people. But if you look at where little free libraries are actually located, they tend to be located in pretty affluent areas that don't really need.
Yeah.
But insofar as anybody can drive through there and grab them.
Yeah, that's true.
To build them, have you ever looked at it? It's expensive. It's really expensive.
Yeah, it's not cheap.
No, I mean it's much more than what the cost of the actual materials.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Anyway, hot takes on little free libraries. I mean, I'm not mad at them, but
they're so elitist. Down with the little free libraries.
They are
kind of, yeah. I mean, honestly, they're very bougie.
Yeah.
I mean, little free libraries.
Yeah. Well, some people will do
books.
Yeah, they kind of are. You know what's funny though is some people will make non-official little free libraries because of that problem, where they'll build them but have them
DIY.
Yeah. I think especially in urban areas.
Books on it, and it kind of doesn't matter.
Yeah, if you've got something where there are books and it says free books, I think that's pretty much all you got to do.
They do that in our lobby
college,
sometimes.
Like Berkeley,
like the lobby of our building.
Everybody in Berkeley is using the same furniture year after year after year because everybody in Berkeley puts their furniture on the curbside and other students pick it up, and then they put it on the curbside and then other students pick it up. So like books, same deal. Yeah. Constant reuse and recycle.
See, Rachel's got 4 in her area, 3 in affluent areas, 1 in front of a synagogue. I'm telling you, it's almost $1,000, I think, to get the kit to build one. It's
so expensive.
It's a lot. Like I looked at it once. It does. Yeah, I mean, it is. It kind of does. I mean, it's a nice idea. It's just
I think if you look at it as like a way to build like community building, I think that I just sometimes the language around it is very high-minded about like access to books, and I'm like, I think you'd be better off saying like this is a community building thing where like you know, it's a way to increase foot traffic in different neighborhoods.
The focus groups liked the language that they have now.
I'm sure that they did.
Yeah. Wow.
Oh no, someone's in trouble.
You know what was cool actually? I went to my first in-person social event since
I saw that.
You know, the early March.
I saw you did that.
Socially distanced and masked walking in Brooklyn, which was great. It was also the first time I went on the subway since early March. It was actually not.
I was gonna say, how did that feel?
It was fine. There wasn't super busy. There were a few people who weren't wearing masks, but everyone kind of just stayed away from them.
That's so weird. So like I was talking about how like people in my area don't take it seriously. Like people in the city proper take it very seriously. Like if you go into Target and you don't like, there was a couple of people without masks on in Target and you could literally see everybody just like giving them the stink eye and staying away from them. But none of the surrounding areas take it nearly as seriously. So that's our problem is it's like all the community spread from the surrounding more rural counties coming into the city. Yeah.
Well, so what I was gonna I'm like, why was I talking about that? Now I remember. So what the reason is where we met up in front of the Brooklyn Public Library, and this girl who's probably 8 or something had come up with this idea, which was really cool, of using her first allowance plus money that other people donated to buy books, like children's books with Black characters, to give away to people. And so she had a table with like her mom and like friends and stuff, and they were just like giving people free books, celebrating like Black people in children's literature. And I was like, that's so cool.
I love that.
Little girl I was like, that's amazing.
Children doing adorable things with books make me happy.
I just love entrepreneurial children.
We are.
There's a little girl who sells bookmarks through our local independent bookstore. She makes them and sells them, and she's just the cutest. And they've started buying them in bulk. So every time you buy a book from them, you get one of her bookmarks. It's
that's cute. Yeah, we'll see what happens. My 6-year-old one time was like, Mom, I want to sell. He's like, I want to like make art and sell it so people will give me dollars. And I was like, okay, but you're going to have to like make it really good. Oh, really? I was like, yeah. I'm like, you can't just.
It's like, what?
He's like, how can I get more money? I'm going to like make art and sell it places because I see people on the streets doing that. And I was like, okay, sure. But you need to actually like make good art. Like,
have I told you about like, okay, I have many stories about my childhood, which was odd, but like when I put like a bunch of my toys on a chair and had like paper play money, and I wanted my parents to come like play store, like buy things from me. And my dad picked up whatever, like a toy car or something, and he was just like, do you have this in blue? And I was like, no, I just have the one. He's like, well, I would prefer it in blue. And I was like, but I just have this one. And he's like, I'm the customer and I'm always right. And if you can't service what I need, then I need to go and take my business elsewhere. And I was just like, well, you know, I only have the one. And he's like, the customer's always right. But I was like, but you're wrong. And he's like, that is like, no, in life, the customer is always right. And I was just like, that's not true. That can't be true. And he's like, it is.
Parables of capitalism, even at such a young age. Wow. Way to reinforce the.
Oh my gosh. Wow. That's really funny. This made me laugh.
My dad used to do that to my nieces. He would like, oh, yeah.
It's fair. Yeah. It's so yeah, no, it's great. Yay, I love it.
I love that.
That's so great. I'm trying to encourage reading. Reading is becoming a thing now. I've been like kind of thinking of at some point doing a book on like, or a video on like kids chapter books, because my 6-year-old is like starting to become more of a reader with chapter books. So.
Make him read Babysitter Club books. I mean, probably not, but I love them.
Make him read Ella Enchanted.
So we're not quite there yet. Right now, Magic Treehouse is a big hit, though. That's about
my nieces loved Magic Treehouse. They loved Magic Treehouse and I can see the cover, but I can't remember the name. It was very much sold to girls, but you know what? Gender is a construct. If he wants to read Babysitter Club or whatever, like
I would be fine with it. He's kind of in this thing right now where he was like, "That's all girls, mom." So I have to like nudge in like female characters here and there. He like, I don't know what happened. There was a switch that happened.
The patriarchy happened.
No, the patriarchy was
we are in unison. The patriarchy.
It was like around when we turned 6 that all of a sudden I was like, what? Okay, sure.
The patriarchy done come down the chimney and done infest your children.
It's like poison in the water. It's everywhere.
Uh-huh.
Oh yeah, Magic School Bus.
Magic School Bus. That show is awesome. Definitely get him on that.
Goosebumps.
Yes. Goosebumps and then Animorphs. I bet he would like Animorphs.
Or the Hardy Boys.
Do they still do those?
Guys. I don't know. Well, we're I think that's still a little bit. So we're doing one thing we did the first one of that was pretty good was Mystery Clubhouse by Sharon Draper, which are great because like all these Black boys who make a clubhouse and solve mysteries, and one like from his family's from Jamaica, and they're really great. So those are good. Oh, another really good one right now is Desmond Cole Ghost Patrol. It's these like 2 kids who like investigate paranormal occurrences in their small town, and like they're fun.
Oh my god, I would have loved that. That would have been my jam 1000%. Because I loved anything with a mystery. Like I loved Encyclopedia Brown. I loved the Weston game.
Yeah.
You know who I really like? I read a lot of Lloyd Alexander books when I was a kid. I don't know if he's read any Lloyd Alexander.
Oh, Wings of a Dragon.
You know what he loved? I read aloud. We did the Phantom Toll Booth, and he was really into it. He thought it was hilarious. All the puns and wordplay, he was very into that. He thought Subtraction Soup was hilarious. Like,
I think
hungrier you get, you know.
Lloyd Alexander was very funny, which is why I read so many Lloyd Alexander books when I was a kid.
Can somebody tell me who the middle grade who wrote Wings of Dragons? I like that. I like that name, and I like that it's a little violent. That sounds like something I would like.
I don't know. That one's by Magic Treehouse. Yay. Spies Coraline. What spooky middle grade you? Oh,
The Dreadful Tale of Prosper Redding.
Yes, The Dreadful Tale of Prosper Redding. Oh, also that's a great one. And then
also Neil Gaiman's Graveyard Book.
That's true. But I was going to say the series by what's her name? Why can't I think of it? The Bear and the Nightingale author.
Oh, I've only read by her The Bear and the Nightingale.
Oh, Catherine Arden?
Catherine Arden. So she
I do know. Yeah, she did write something else. I do know what you're talking about.
She has a great I've read the first one. It was fantastic. Like really great spooky middle grade series.
Okay. Sorry, I'm reading the description of Wings of a Dragon or whatever, and it sounds so fun. The 7 dragon tribes have been at war for generations, locked in an endless battle over ancient lost treasure. This sounds like something I would love.
Yeah. Small Spaces. Thank you, Ashley. Yeah, that's the book I was talking about by Catherine Arden. That's really good. I haven't read the second book in the series yet, but it was really, really great. Aragon and Little Women. Oh, yeah. We also we read Little House in the Big Woods, which does have female main characters, and we're reading Lion the Witch and the Wardrobe out loud. Those I'm reading out loud, but
yeah. The Little House books I think have aged interestingly.
Oh yeah, no. So I don't think a lot of people liked it, but I talked about this in my mid-month wrap up. Because Sharon Draper. I kind of used it as a way of talking about a lot of issues that come up in it, though. Like even colorism, because they sort of like romanticize the blonde hair, blue-eyed look of Mary versus Laura. It's like I don't know. We use it like it's cool as far as like how life was like living in the wilds of America back in the day, making your own stuff. But
yeah, I mean, it's I don't think it's like, you know, off the table or whatever. I just think it's interesting reading it now.
You know what books I thought were like so cool, and my mom always got them for me because they were educational, and I was delighted because they were pretty. Was the book series that was like supposed to be diaries from like historical either figures or just like people who lived in historical time periods.
Yeah.
There was like a Marie Antoinette one. There was a Titanic one. There was like one about the like the gold rush. There was like a Chinese person who was working on the like railroad. There was like a bunch of those.
Yeah, there was a ton of those. There's more of them now. I remember those. Well, and when I was growing up too, I was really into the American Girl series.
I was thinking I think there were boys
oh
ones,
my gosh, Felicity.
Those were great.
Okay, I had Felicity's doll, and then I loved her series. It was excellent.
See, I always liked Kristen because like I know like Latvians and Swedes aren't the same, but
okay, sorry, I'm saying
Dear America
in the chat. Dear America. Okay, I got my nieces hooked on Dear America. And she is obsessed with it. My sister was so mad at me because it's like it deals with like real death and stuff in there, and she was like, "I can't believe you gave this to my kids to read." And I was like,
I love
it makes them appreciate what they have now. If you have little boys, though, there's also an equivalent of Dear America that is aimed more at little boys. Though again, gender is a construct, so who cares? But
patriarchy.
Yeah. Right.
Don't tell them about the other books.
The American Girl stuff too. They were so good. No, we couldn't afford to get me the doll, but I remember poring over the catalogs every month because I used to get those in the mail and I read the books.
Okay, so my parents were the original hipsters because we could definitely afford those dolls, but they refused to get anything that was popular. So no American Girl dolls and no Magic Attic dolls. I got the like German equivalent of that costs the same.
Magic Attic. I loved Magic Attic. Oh, that was a great
I'm just
series.
saying, like, why couldn't I have the doll that everybody has that I wanted when we spent the same amount of money? I'm just saying, I'm still bitter about this.
Yeah, I will tell you, Bethany, I got the doll and I did love her, but my parents were kind of cheapskates on like getting any additional like clothes and stuff. So that did limit the fun because part of the fun was like, I also would pour over the catalogs and be like, I want her new outfit. And they were like, you have the doll, you're good. And I was like, but the accessories.
Oh my god, wait, okay. I don't think any of you know this. I think only Amanda knows. No, does even Amanda? Someone know. Oh, no, my other friend knows this. I had a Barbie doll, but it was only the like retro one that was like an anniversary one where she's like covered in makeup and looking to the side, like the old fashioned one. No Ken doll, but I had a Pillsbury Doughboy. And so that was my Ken doll. Yeah.
Interesting. I wasn't allowed to play with Barbies because my mom said they caused bad body image. Which, fair.
I got Barbies, but I destroyed them all.
Yeah, I ended up just playing with them at my friends' houses because they were like forbidden fruit, you know.
All the normal Barbies, I had a Barbie that looked like she came from a 1940s movie and a Pillsbury Doughboy. So, like, I loved playing with normal Barbies and Ken dolls in other people's houses.
Yeah.
Oh, the
Boxcar
yeah.
Oh, because of it. This is cool. Boxcar Children.
Nancy Drew, yes.
Yeah. Nancy Drew. Mom would not let you have Ken dolls either, so we made Barbie be one of the Barbies.
Okay, but so, like, when I did the voices for them, because Barbie was covered in makeup, I always gave her, like, a Lauren Bacall voice. And Doughboy is Doughboy, so it was always like.
Were you purposely evoking Lauren Bacall?
I didn't know that at the time, but I was just
I would really,
Doughboy, I love you, and he was always like, Marty. Like, that was my childhood.
I was just gonna say I would have really loved Leanna being like so culturally, effete that she is like, well, my Lauren Bacall voice was really the main. Hide and Seeker. Oh gosh, guys, I'm putting all these holds on the library because you guys are giving me. I feel like this is the year where I'm rediscovering middle grade and how wonderful it is. It's just like,
you know who writes a lot of really good middle grades?
So nice.
Neil Gaiman. I'm serious.
Shot every time.
I know. He writes so much good middle grade. The only middle grade I read is Neil Gaiman.
Oh man. I've reread them multiple times, but like I would like to go back again and reread the Song of the Lioness Quartet and like other Tamora Pierce stuff because I love Tamora Pierce.
Tamora Pierce is the shit. Circle of Magic is my jam. Sandry and Company. Also, Alana had the oldie timey birth control, and I respect a lot of that.
Yeah. You know, her books are interesting too, because I feel like you don't get as much of this now with the way that things are segmented, but her books would follow characters from like middle grade through YA. Basically, it would be like 9 or 10 up through like 18. Which I have liked. Like, I kind of liked being able to follow a character growing up. Why don't they do that anymore? It's like not a thing. I don't know. That segmented publishing.
I don't know this, but I've gathered that maybe Percy Jackson does this a little bit. Like, he's older in the later spin-off series, so you at least see him as a side character, maybe?
Yeah, I think so. Maybe. I haven't really read them. I was a little old.
I'm on book 3 now. I'm waiting for book 3. I'm enjoying them. They're very
I should read them at some point. Because they also sound like the kind of thing my kid is going to like when he's a couple years older. He's like, we're not quite there yet. But from what I hear, I'm like, I feel like this is going to be...
They're really fun. I love all of the references to Greek mythology. So if you know Greek mythology, it's fun to watch that. And can I just tell you, I love that they are shamelessly like promoting like polyamory and like non-marriage related like sexual relationships between the adults in this series, like very casually. They have entire cabins of half siblings who are just like, yeah, my dad effed you, and now
I
we're
would
all
just
here.
like to say that middle grade children's literature that is like inspired by actual mythology is available to you. Oh my gosh,
take a shot. I was like, which Neil Gaiman is it going to be?
It's very good. It's illustrated by Chris Riddell, who is an excellent artist.
I'm sure he is.
I'm just going to put this somewhere where you can see it.
Okay. Ashley says that he is a main character in the second series. Okay, cool. I'm way into it. I'm waiting for the third book right now from the library.
I read some Happy Hollisters. I think I inherited a couple from my mom like a long time ago. There were like a couple. Man, there's like so much I feel like things have evolved a lot of the way that things kind of get written and published, but I used to like reading older though, like when I was, and I wonder how kids are now, because I feel like things are often so...
I don't think there was as much available for us though. Like there definitely was, I mean, obviously there were series written for children and like middle grade and YA, but like not to the same level as now. So I feel like
there is something to be said for like challenging the child's mind as opposed to writing to their level. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's not so it's a balance. More like but it's like the character ages too. Like I liked reading about older characters when I was a kid, like
I mean, like so like reading about Tom Sawyer instead of reading about something that was like written for your age. You know what I mean? Like a kid can identify with Tom Sawyer.
Books with children in them rather than books written to children.
Exactly.
That's fair. Well, Neil Gaiman does that, but I think
I was about to say Neil Gaiman writes for adults like they were children and children like they were adults.
That's not what I meant. Like, I mean, yes, that's true, but I think more what I meant was I was less interested in reading stories about kids the same age as me. Like, I wanted to, like, when I was like 11, I wanted to read about like 16-year-olds,
Also, like when you think about when kids play pretend, they're pretending to be adults. Like girls like have baby dolls and kitchen sets and like trucks.
That's why I like the babysitter.
They want to be adults. They don't want to read about their own age. Like I am this age. I don't need to read about this.
Yeah. That's interesting. Books printed on World War II paper restrictions. Interesting.
Ooh.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot. And I remember all the children's books that people would push at me. I hated, not all of them, but a lot of like classic stuff. I was so depressing. I don't like depressing books. I never did. So like my mom loves them. So she would be like, read Charlotte's Web and Black Beauty. And I was like, these are horrible.
Black Beauty. Oh my gosh, I loved Black Beauty so much, and I wept, and I loved it. It was so good.
I've never, I guess I've never liked books that are like that.
But Black Beauty doesn't have a totally sad ending.
I don't care.
It's just there's a lot of bumps in the road to get there. Yes, the Amelia books. That's what I was trying to think of earlier, Bethany.
Yeah.
My nieces really love those, but I loved Amelia Bedelia.
I was gonna say, like, wait, not Amelia Bedelia? You've lost me. I only know Amelia Bedelia.
There's a newer Amelia series that my nieces really liked, but I was an Amelia Bedelia kind of gal.
Yeah, Amelia Bedelia was fun. 100. Oh, I haven't read that one. So
also, we haven't talked about Junie B. Jones.
I never read that.
You never read Junie B. Jones?
Mm-mm.
Oh, my nieces read that, but I didn't. Yeah. You're younger than us. I don't think that they were out when we were.
I mean, you're not like a lot younger, but maybe enough younger.
I don't think it was a new release when I read it.
I remember them being for younger kids.
Ashley.
No, I don't like Junie B. Jones.
I like that Ashley has beef with them, like a chapter book protagonist. Oh, that was great. Okay.
Oh my gosh. Oh, yeah, I read some of those too. I didn't love them.
Yeah,
I remember those.
I was like, I wasn't actually a horse girl, but I was an aspiring horse girl. Like, I think if we had had access for me to have a horse, I would have been very into that.
Also, Ramona Quimby. Do we know this?
Oh, I like Ramona Quimby. Yeah. You know what? I think, and you know what? I'm having a realization now. I have never been a huge fan of books that center animals, and now I wonder if it's because some of the first ones I read were so depressing, it just put me off them. Because my mom
will tell you, I don't like when
at me, and ever since then, I've just never liked.
I wasn't into the ones where the animals, like the main animals, died. Like I didn't like those, but
no, but then I never liked any animal books, and I think it's because I wonder if it's because I was
Beatrix Potter. Did you read those?
Wait. Redwall.
I love the Beatrix.
No.
Did we?
I tried to get into this.
I never tried because I was like, nope, animal books, nope, not for me.
Redwall was so good. I love Redwall.
I know. I had friends who loved them. But I just like. Yeah, so now I'm wondering if it's because my mom traumatized me with Charlotte's Web, and then I just never wanted to.
But like Redwall, they're like anthropomorphic animals. It's like Robin. It's like Disney's Robin Hood.
Look,
sorry, I'm just loving this.
This was me as a 13-year-old. I was like, nope, animals. I don't know.
I mean, they're like little mice who are like monks and like living in a monastery. Like they're not animals.
Well, you literally just said they're mice.
But I'm saying they're like, it's not like an animal that like is.
Are those cat books?
Those are the cat ones.
Yeah, those are the cat books.
Yeah, all of the boys in my grade liked those, and I never got into them.
Series of Unfortunate Events.
Again, a little after my time.
Yeah. Like my younger brothers read those, and I was little. Same with Percy Jackson. Like I never read Percy Jackson because I was like a little too old for them. They came out.
I never read them, but
I was a little too old for Percy Jackson, but I'm rediscovering him now as a 33-year-old lady.
My brother was obsessed with Artemis Fowl.
No. Artemis Fowl, I didn't get into that either.
The first one, it was weird. I read the first two.
That will be horrifying. Talking cats? I don't know. We saw how that went last year. It didn't go well.
Okay, but also the Aristocats.
I know, but that's an animation. Maybe if it's an animated adaptation, but live action talking cats, I think we have learned does not work.
Creepy.
Or like
unless you take some edibles.
Yeah, but that wasn't live action either.
I was saying, but like more realistic looking than in Aristocats, but like not actual.
Oh, yeah.
I like how we've landed on middle grade reads, and we've totally gotten away from Gothic related.
Series of Unfortunate Events is kind of Gothic.
There you go.
Fair enough. Yeah, I like when I was middle grade age, I was reading like the Chronicles of Narnia and Little Women and I don't know. I kind of wonder if I could get my
When I was middle grade age, I fancied myself quite the connoisseur of literature. So I was above a lot of those series.
Yeah. Wishbone. Is there books? I watched the TV show.
I watched the TV show. I never read the books.
There were books?
There were books. There were novelizations. I read some of them. Yes.
The show, most of my knowledge of the classics is based on Wishbone.
I think a Book Olive has a series on her channel where she watches the Wishbone episode and then reads the book.
Really fun. Yeah. Oh, I read the Cricket in Times
Cricket in Times Square. Yeah.
Classic one. Yeah. Oh, Wishbone. Yeah, Wishbone was great. I think Wishbone helped me not have to read something in high school English class once.
I would never. I was such a little shit. I was such a little literature know-it-all. It was awful. I mean, nothing has changed, but still.
I was gonna say that's so shocking.
I know, right? Nothing has changed, but I was such a literary snob.
Whereas I was sort of I'm gonna read the literary things that interest me and not the ones that don't. That was
Well, to give you context, our AP English teacher was trying to decide if we should read A Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man or Pride and Prejudice, and we talked her into making us read the James Joyce because we'd already read Pride and Prejudice in our downtime.
Your school experience was very different from mine.
I read I remember reading I had an AP English class, and I was raised in a more conservative religious family, and so I had an atheist AP English teacher, and we read The Stranger by Camus and stuff, and I was
no. See, I went to Jesus school. We weren't reading that. We could read A Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man, though, because it was critiquing the Catholic Church, and at fundamentalist school, we just ate that up with a spoon.
Right.
Yeah. I went to a school where we had
good times,
two
guys.
things to read, and I was one of the few people that actually read one of the two things that we're supposed to read, and no one else read any of it. So our discussions in class were the teacher going, "So did any of you read it?" And we were like,
okay, sorry, Amanda P just referenced Love Comes Softly, and I just had such a flashback, Amanda, and I love that you were, oh man. Okay, so did you become, I thought you read that when you were an atheist, and I'm like, what a choice. Oh man,
that's hilarious. Yeah, so I read so much of that stuff as a teenager, all that Christian romance stuff. Yeah, Love Comes Softly.
Oh, Rachel went to fundamentalist school too.
Oh,
it's a bond for life. You're a fellow weirdo.
See, I went to one for a while. This is what happens.
Yeah,
man, look at us.
You went to public school. If you went to heathen school, they corrupted you. That's why you're not a good fundamentalist today. Fablehaven, I've never even heard of.
Fablehaven is great, actually. It's a really good middle grade fantasy series.
Looking it up. You guys are giving me all my middle grade fantasy marching orders here.
It's very fun. My younger brothers got me into that one. They also got me into Hunger Games, actually. Which is kind of interesting.
Oh. When I looked this up on Goodreads, the description comes up in Deutsch. I don't read Deutsch, so I've got to find the English version. Or maybe it's in Dutch. Atonement.
Yeah. So I went to a fundamentalist school for 6th grade through 10th grade. And then 11th and 12th I went to public school. And that was where I had the atheist teacher. So that was.
Well, I will tell you, I feel like the people who come out of fundamentalist school the best are the ones who kind of dipped in and out. I think if you went all, I went 1 through 12 and 1 out of 5 stars, would not recommend.
Yeah. They did.
They got adapted?
Yeah.
What
they did.
in the world?
There were movies, Hallmarkish movies. Yep. Mm-hmm. Bruce Coville. I don't know. I don't know who Bruce Coville is. That. My Teacher is an Alien. Oh, I remember those. I didn't read them, but I remember seeing them in libraries. I remember those. Yeah. Yep.
Oh yeah, the army. Oh my gosh, Left Behind.
Those were terrifying. They freaked me out so much. And Y2K was a thing when everybody thought everything was gonna end. I remember. Yeah.
To be fair, I think that was everyone, not just the fundies. But
no, it's true. But especially, but the fundies didn't just think the world was gonna end. They thought it was gonna be the rapture too.
Yeah, I remember having serious classes in Bible class explaining how the rapture was coming imminently, and it was very depressing for a 12-year-old to hear that. It's but I kind of have like my whole life ahead of me. Why? Like, I don't love this. This is not great.
I don't love this.
Like traumatizing children in the church. In 5th grade, my Sunday school teacher, I don't think my parents even knew this, but she thought it was a good idea to show all of us. I don't know if any of you guys have seen these, but there were these movies made in like 70s about like the rapture and end of things, and there's like they kill all the Christians with guillotines, and like the bad guys are communists and stuff. It was like in that time period. It was terrifying, and I was in 5th grade, and they showed these to us in Sunday school. I don't. My parents found out like years later, and were like, "They did what?"
So not VeggieTales.
I mean, they showed us.
I don't know who thought that was a good idea.
I don't want to be too explicit on your channel, Bethany, but they showed us the results of somebody who chooses to not continue with their pregnancy as our sex ed. That was basically our sex ed, was multiple pictures of that. So that was the most traumatizing. That, and then they would also show us pictures of STDs. So that was the most traumatizing thing I was made to look at. But
yeah, it's not good.
How was that?
Yeah, kindergarten through 8th grade, public high school. Yeah, it's, not
1 out of 5.
Yep. Oh, the teen one.
Tina.
That's right. They made a teen version of the Left Behind books. I remember that. They made a teen.
And those, when I was probably like in 5th grade or so, my parents got those for me to read during church because I didn't want to pay attention in church. So the compromise was I could read if it was something Jesus-y, and that was the Jesus-y thing they gave me to read.
Oh, wow.
Oh my gosh.
So I had the literal opposite experience because I went to public school and I was raised by atheists, and my atheist parents were always like, yeah, like if you are interested in Jesus, like be our guest, like whatever fantasy you want. Like.
They're like, cool, have at it. Oh my gosh. Pre and post trib. Okay, Rachel, did you guys have the chart of Daniel explaining the end of days? Like there's this very specific chart that I feel like was in the back of so many study Bibles that I looked at growing up. Sorry, we're just reenacting my trauma basically right now. Sorry, we can move on.
Okay, but so like I have some experience just because like my dad was always telling me how lucky I was to not be raised by like religious people because he went to Lutheran schools all his life. And so he was always telling me about what Lutheran school was like and how like blessed, but in a non-God way, because we're atheists, I was to not be going to those schools. And I was just like
secular blessed. You were.
I'm like blessed by the all Mother Earth.
Well, it's interesting because like I'm still like it took me a long time to deal with. I mean, maybe I haven't fully, but deal with a lot of my issues from this. But like I'm still religious. Just like a much more liberal. I mean, some people probably would say that I'm not.
I was going to say it depends on who you ask.
Probably say that I'm not, but like I don't know. It's interesting. It's version of
it's taken a lot of therapy, a lot of processing, and I do still really enjoy casual. Like I will always discover something that was weird about my schooling experience. Like I'd say once a year I bring up something casually and somebody's like, excuse me? And I'm like, oh yeah, like, every 6 weeks we would have like girls' chapel where they would explain how our bodies were temptations and we were going to make the boys sin and go to hell. That's not normal. And people are like, yeah, no, that's not normal. I'm like, oh, okay. That was every 6 weeks of my high school experience.
Yeah. Well, so it's interesting to me. I'm realizing
my high school was just trying to stop people from like literally beating each other in the hallways. Like that was all they were interested in. Like, stop it.
That's right. You're lukewarm for Jesus, and you will get spit out. Revelation.
It's interesting because I think as an adult, like I've been able to recontextualize some things, and I'm realizing, I think my parents as adults became more fundamentalist, but we're never as extreme as like the churches we went to. So I had to grow up. So I don't think they realized, because they just wanted people who were like serious about things. So they would go to these more extreme churches. So I'd be part of communities with really extreme people. And now I know my parents don't even think all the stuff that we were taught, especially as like a woman growing up, like youth group and stuff, and they were like, "Really? That's what you?" I was like, "Yeah." Like
I don't think my parents realized how extreme it was either, because I talked to my, like, when I was probably in my mid-20s, I started kind of saying to my parents, like, why in the world did you send me to the school? Especially because my dad was not a Christian. They were like, well, it wasn't. Well, the school at the time had probably the second best academics in the city.
Yeah.
So that was really the reason they were sending. And then my dad, even though he wasn't a Christian, was like, well, it's like moral formation. That's good.
Yeah.
Benign. And like, so I would bring up things that they taught me, and they'd be like, what?
Like, y'all paid for that.
They're like, excuse me? And I mean, they knew some, like, my school hosted 2 Pat Buchanan rallies. Like, let that percolate. So like, they knew about some of that. My dad wasn't like, when I was in 8th grade, we all had to go around and say who our parents voted for. And because my dad voted for a Democrat, we all had to stop and pray for him.
What if you didn't know?
Well, it was assumed. First of all, you know, but second of all, yeah.
Because I mean, like, technically that's supposed to be like private information. So like, my dad sometimes in his life lessons,
there's no secrets between you and the Lord, Liene.
I'm saying, but you wouldn't know what your father voted for if your father is like, that's between me and the ballot box.
If he's voting for God's candidate, he has nothing to hide. He'll be very proud of it.
So if he doesn't say, the assumption is it's Democrat.
I don't know. My dad would always take me in the voting booth with him and explain to me, like, why he was voting for the people he was voting for.
Okay, so my parents would always take me to the voting booth, but it's because I wanted to poke the thing through. So they were just like, that one, and that one, and that one. I'd be like, poke, poke, poke. I voted.
Oh, a hanging Chad.
Never. I was thorough.
Okay, I love Rachel says, if you bring up fundamentalism, I'm like, cool, let's talk about some trauma. Let's look into some trauma. That's basically me too. Again, sorry, this is just me deconstructing my childhood. We don't have to do that as a group, if not.
That's okay. I mean, mine too. Probably, like, yeah. Yeah, so.
What?
That doesn't make any sense.
That is so wild. Like, okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Just
he was working on voodoo.
Like the extent of sex ed that we got was basically like, don't have sex if you're not married because pregnancy and STDs. The end. Like that. It was like, basically.
Well, yeah, our sex ed was constant because, like, one of the big things is like, don't have sex ever. I mean, it's really like Mean Girls. Like, don't have sex because you will get pregnant and chlamydia and die, or whatever it is he says. Like, that was basically my sex ed. So like, we would constantly have, I would say like once every 2 months, we would have like a special chapel that was basically something to do with purity culture.
Oh, delightful. So I don't recall.
And I was a goody two-shoes who was following all of it. And I found out later everybody else was getting it on. And I was just hanging out for Jesus. And I was like, well, damn. Come on.
Well, I don't recall.
I'm a rule follower. I'm a Virgo moon.
I don't recall ever having sex ed in school. We had like anatomy, like we learned about like organs and how they function, but we never had sex ed. But my talk about menstruation and about sex came from my father, and he pulled out Grey's Anatomy, like the book, and like flips to the correct pages and was like, this goes in here and this does this. It was very
you got like the tampon like little flyer that comes in the box.
Okay, but so when my dad very thoroughly showed me what a uterus looks like in Grey's Anatomy and explained to me what menstruation is. The only thing that didn't come through was the frequency. It came across to me as a one-time thing, and then it became clear to him that it was not clear to me that this is an ongoing thing.
I was like, no. This is like a monthly maintenance kind of situation.
Like, it always happens. He's like, yeah. And I was like, forever? And he was like, well, no, it does end at some point. And I was like, when does it end? He's like, well, there's this thing called menopause. And so then I learned about menopause. I was like, I have to wait until I'm old.
So can I just tell you that I never got any sex ed from my parents? Like, so everything that I learned about sex, I learned from my peers and from fundamentalist school. And my mother did not even acknowledge the fact that I could be having sex until I was about to graduate from college. And she was like, do you want to go on birth control? And I was like, well, I've already been on it. But that's literally the only discussion we have ever
so
had about anything related to sex.
My dad's explanation of sex was so anatomical and so clinical that, like, when I first saw, but so when I first saw a sex scene in a movie, I didn't understand that I was seeing sex, because from like how I pictured this going down based on the like organs that were coming together to do the thing, I was not picturing whatever that was. I was like, no, like to me, it was very much like you know, in sci-fi when you have like a landing dock and the two spaceships are like, they need to like join. Like, it was very much that. I was like, okay, so you angle it and then you like make sure they're aligned and like make sure they like lock into place and like do what they need to do. Like, it was not.
Oh man. Yeah. Oh yeah, Amanda, that sounds like mine.
The basics of sex also, and it was similarly like pretty, like I remember them telling like the basic of like, well, this goes here and then like the sperm fertilizes the egg and that's how a baby is made. And I was like, that's gross. Why would you do that?
See, whereas like the way it was always pitched to me is like, men have this irrepressible urge. They are animals. They cannot control it. Your only job is to fend off these wild beasts who are constantly going to be pawing at you for the rest of your life.
That's not how my dad put it.
You need to wear a turtleneck every day. You need to like do not show your body because they are always on the prowl for you. Like that was how it was described to me.
Again, my father, a male figure, did not say, "We are the beasts from which you must hide, and we will be doing this." Like,
I would much have preferred your dad's version of like, "Let me show you a chart."
I mean, my dad kind of did though. He would be like, "Let me tell you, I was a teenage boy, and I know what teenage boys are like, and you need to be careful." And I'm like, okay. Like, yeah.
So my dad would always tell me the sex ed that he got from his mom, which is the only sex ed he ever got. His mom told him, "You know what goes, you know where." And that was it.
You know what? Oh wow. No, we my 9th grade health teacher, who was in charge of a lot of our sex ed, was fired for being a pervert, basically, and he had been being a pervert for years.
He had been being a pervert.
He had been being a pervert, and when I tell you, he literally looked at me and one of my friends and said, "You need to button your shirt up. You're tempting me and everyone else."
Gross.
14-year-old grown man.
Yeah. See, this is the thing that I hate most, though, is that this is very common in like fundamentalist stuff, is that the burden is on women. It's like, it's your fault.
Always.
If you cause your brother to stumble.
Okay, but so like on a related note, like
I don't blame
I'm clearly an expert on like romance novels, not at all. But when I have read romance novels, the ones that where I begin to take issue is when in the male's head, it's like, you know, oh, she's like wearing this and like, doesn't she know what it's doing to me? And they're just like coming apart because and whenever I read that, I'm just like,
yeah.
I
mean, it's always and it's such a like the guy who got fired. He just went to a different, I think Amanda said she was in Kentucky going to Fundy School. He went to a school in Kentucky, and we played against that school in volleyball once. We were like, "Oh, so we heard you have Mr. So-and-so now." And they were like, "Yep." So, I mean, like it never...
So it's like the Catholic priests that get moved to a different parish?
Yeah, it really is. And I'll tell you what, he didn't even actually really get fired for being a pervert. He got fired because my friend Jessica's mom pitched a fit, and now I stand this. I love this. He made us all measure our body fat in front of each other and say it out loud in front of the whole class, boys and girls, like everyone together. And it became this big source of teasing for like a month. And so my friend Jessica's mom went to the school and was like, teenage girls do not need somebody making them feel worse about their bodies. Like, this is unacceptable. And he finally got fired.
Not for being a pervert.
Again, I'm sorry we're reenacting my trauma.
Yeah.
Well, one of the teachers at my school got arrested and imprisoned for murder. Is that...
Okay, that wins. That I mean, two of our teachers married 2 of my classmates, but I think that's way worse.
But so when the students were learned of this, like, because we were like, where's Mr. Landreth? Why do we keep having a substitute teacher? And we learned it was because he was arrested for murder. Everyone was just like, but he was one of the good teachers.
Well, it proves, so you can be a great teacher, also a murderer.
He's very passionate about things.
I had issues with like some of the teachers too at the fundamentalist school I went to. Like some of them really hated me. I think because I would like question things and noticed when they made mistakes. And I mean, I was kind of a know-it-all, but my teachers in public school loved that I was actually interested and engaged.
Yeah. Well,
better.
Yeah. We could go on and on. Gothics. You know what's horrifying?
Gothic.
Repressive religion that causes lifelong issues.
You want a Gothic novel
that haunt you, you know, like
that haunts you to your grave.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I'm going to recommend, based on this conversation, The Year of the Witching by Alexis Henderson, because the part of the horror is fundamentalist. So
yeah, there you go.
Appropriate recommendation. So we've been doing this for 2 hours.
We have. Sorry, I just realized that we veered very far off the advertised topic. I enjoyed our stop in the middle grade land. I'm not sure how people feel about our rehashing of our crazy high school experiences.
You know, at least some people can probably relate.
It's true. It sounds like Reads with Rachel and I need to have like a group therapy session.
And also, let's acknowledge that a lot of like Gothic creepy stuff is like Gothic children.
That is true.
So it's all related. That's what I'm saying.
There is a lot of Gothic
argument to be made.
Like creepy kids. Yeah.
Wow. Who doesn't love rehab?
I mean, there's nothing like a little Lord Fauntleroy that's staring at you from a dark corner, like Nightmares Forever.
Well, I mean, like Red Rum, The Shining, creepy kids.
Yeah, creepy kids be creepy.
I think The Shining is kind of Gothic as a horror novel because it's like that creepy old hotel. Like it's all these different things that have happened at the hotel.
Yeah, I've not seen the movie because I'm a wimp with horror movies, and I've not read any Stephen King books.
I read Pet Sematary, and that was kind of Gothic,
you're okay.
I would say.
I have a couple of his books on my TBR. At some point, I will probably I actually want to read his new one, The Institute. I have a copy.
Yeah, I want to read that too.
I have that.
Oh.
Yeah, I've got that one.
Bethany, I think you would like, well, you don't like sad. Well, Pet Sematary, I think you would.
I think you'd be into the themes of Pet Sematary.
But I know spoilers about it, and I'm not sure I can deal with.
Yeah, you don't like books with the like inciting incident of that book.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think the inciting incident is the reason because Stephen King's on record as saying that he thinks that's the darkest thing he's ever written, and he didn't think it should be published, and that's why. But also, for me, I was just like, it's dark, but like for me, it doesn't affect me.
Right. But I think for me, I'm like,
that's true.
But
yeah.
Yes. That's why I'm like, maybe not. But I am interested in like The Institute. That one looks good. So I have that on my.
I'm planning to read Carrie in October.
I saw a movie on TV once, and
I've never seen the movie.
Liked it. I was so angry about it. That's another one with like oppressive religion leading to horrific things, actually.
Whew. Yep. I think oppressive religion is low-key kind of a Gothic theme now that we're talking about this.
I think it might be.
Yeah. Definitely is. Or at least not necessarily religious, but like repression of emotion leading to heightened emotion. And so like a lot of like the religious thing is repressing sexual urges, repressing like passionate desires, like that repression that manifests itself in violent emotion.
Well, then you get these over-the-top things popping out about it, like this recent thing with like Jerry Falwell Jr. that came out. I'm like,
if anybody who's been around the church, that surprised me 0%. Like not at all.
No. Yeah.
This
is the thing is I think it's like when it's a practice that is about that kind of repression, it can, I think, then lead to people acting out in more severe ways and hiding it. Yeah.
You mean it's kind of like making
the Scarlet Letter. Yeah. Yeah, the Scarlet Letter I think definitely has kind of a gothy vibe to it. It's not surprising.
No, but not. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well.
Or, you know, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
For joining, and I figured since we've been on for a while, probably end it. But thanks, quite a lot of people popped in, which was fun. So thank you guys for hanging out, chatting about a lot of things. And have a good night, everyone.
Yeah, we covered a lot of ground, I feel like.
Recommendations we did cover. Okay.